intelligent conversations? Is it grown to the level that we can say that now we need to fully adopt artificial intelligence in our businesses?
Wow. So I think, first of all, I think we're a little bit late to the conversation in most parts of society. So artificial intelligence has been around, right? So I'll give you an example from 2018-19. We had 5 people in the finance department. A year later, in 2019, we had 1, right? Because the artificial intelligence, even back then, was able to replace a lot of the things that accounting departments did.
Yes.
So this is not a new thing. I think now we've come to the point, like you ask, where it's so prevalent in all aspects of working life that it's so accessible to everyone. So every company does have to adopt it in order to survive, absolutely. But I don't think it's about us adopting it. I think it's about AI adopting us. I think we're past the point where we get to choose whether we use AI or not. I think we're way beyond that discussion. I think AI is net 4.0. I think AI is the new reality, just like the internet was first, search engines, then social media. Now here we are, it's artificial intelligence, and that's the new reality. And it's moving much faster than any technology before it, right? Because it's also self-learning, self-creating.
So in line with a business owner this morning listening to you, and is trying to think, well, this particular topic about artificial intelligence, what does a business owner start from if they never heard of this particular concept?
Yeah.
And what do they start adopting AI from?
Right, so in very simple layman's terms, the first thing is you need to go out and search for things softwares that could make your life easier.
Yes.
How can I do my job quicker to a higher quality standard, for example?
That's the first question you need to ask yourself.
That's the first question you need to ask yourself.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely.
As opposed to efficiency.
I think they go hand in hand, right? So quality, efficiency,
yes,
productivity, they're all the same thing to me, right? That's the question. But the first question needs to be, what is it that I'm doing, and can I outsource what I'm doing to the AI? And if you don't do that, you're not going to survive, because someone else is sure as hell going to do it, right? So for us, for instance, as software developers, my biggest company is a software development company. The guys do AI augmented coding, but also something more mundane, let's say project management, right? So project management used to be all about writing all the tasks in a really long list, then assigning dates to them and so on. Now what you can do with AI-powered project management software, like say Keto software, K-E-T-O software from Finland, what you can do with that is you write prompts. So you prompt the AI to write the project plan for you. So you just put in what you want done, and you put in your resource constraints, and it'll just make a project plan for you and say, okay, is this roughly right? And it'll be roughly right, and then you'll edit it. So you'll be 50, 60, 70, 80% quicker than before. So imagine you're that guy versus the guy who says, right, I'm going to take out my spreadsheet and I'm going to start typing. You don't stand a chance. And Kenya is a very exciting place, because Nairobi is a tech hub, right? You have software developers. The number of software developers you have per capita is growing faster than anywhere in the world at the moment. So, bar maybe the Ukraine, right? So you're in a really exciting space to take advantage of this.
So one question you're going to find outside there as well, in the conversation for AI. Now, businesses want to cut costs, and in fact, the main reason as why they will move into AI is to cut costs and improve efficiency for their businesses, to make their businesses more modern. They will tell you, well, I've got 2 options, Henry. I either go to the open source market, adopt a software, or have a developer within the company to develop this software for me so that I can actually get to adopt it. Which way to go at a time when we even have AI market that's also been built up to adopt these businesses?
Yeah, so first of all, I disagree a little bit with you about that it's all about the efficiency gains and cutting costs. I think it's about putting the money where it does the most good. That's the entrepreneur's view, right? So you don't want to put money into something that's inefficient. You want to put it somewhere where it grows your business.
Yes.
And so that's the efficiency discussion, but it's also about creativity, right? So you can do great things with AI. So for example, a couple of years back we thought copywriters, influencers, all of that will never go out of fashion, and they have safe jobs sitting out there in Indonesia on the beach and working remotely. And in fact, it's those jobs that are gone now, because ChatGPT 4 writes better copy than 80% of native-speaking creative copywriters who write in English, right? So that's not just an efficiency gain, it's also a creativity gain, because the really good creatives, the content producers, they bounce off ideas of what they get from the AI. They use the AI as a starting point, and then they add the human touch on top. And so I think that's a really big opportunity. It's exciting, but it also means that there's a big risk for a large number of people out there. So the only thing that protects you are two things, really. Brand, both personal and otherwise. And we can riff off that because I love that topic, the brand topic. And your own excellence. So you reinventing yourself, your continuous learning, you're getting better and better at all times, no matter what your age. Right? So.
But it's a good thing that you've got into that particular conversation before we get there. Since you've mentioned that the biggest fear for majority of people now in the world economy is that with the advent of AI, we're going to lose a lot of jobs within majority of value chains across businesses.
Yeah.
Is that a reality, or are we creating more opportunities?
So I think the interesting thing is, first of all, historically, technology has always created more jobs than it's destroyed, always. However, there have been shifts. So some people have lost their jobs and other jobs have been created. So that's always been the reality. But there's never been a net loss of jobs. But also, that change has never been as quick as now, right? So the adoption of social media took about 10 years as a commercial tool. Internet took even longer, right? So industrialization 200 and some years ago took much longer. So what is a little bit scary is just how fast that shift is. But the interesting thing now is that the traditional jobs that are done by grunts or by angry young men are not a threat at the moment. It's actually the ones where we thought they would be safe. So it's the thinkers and the creatives, right? So it's a whole different narrative, and it's interesting to see how this is going to play out from my perspective.
I'll come back to you on that particular area for jobs that have been lost or created within this particular process. You're going to make this one question as well, that hey guys, it's a bit too early to adopt AI in your business, that the shift is happening now. You might find yourself on the wrong side of this particular shift. So businesses are also getting told, you know what, not complete adoption, study it fast.
So I don't believe in that any business can learn enough by studying. I think entrepreneurs who are hesitators and have analysis paralysis are not going to survive anyway. So the only way to learn this is to try it. I don't think you can read about this. It's the same as trying to read about a business before starting it for too long. You need to try, you need to make the mistakes, you need to get it wrong. Hell, then cancel the subscription, right? So I think we need much larger scale trying of things that work and don't work, rather than studying about too much. But if we take this to sort of one higher, to the macro level, so if we think about what's already happening, what the AI already does, right? So if you order something online, let's say you go on Amazon or Baidu or whatnot, who decides what you get to order? Because it's not you. Because the first 4,000 search results for when you look for a pen have been curated by the algorithm, right? So the algorithm tells you what your best options are. So it's really whoever controls the algorithm who decides what you should buy, and guess what? They make you buy the thing that makes them the most money. And the only protection against that is brand, right? So imagine you go into audio messaging and you go, hey, Amazon, I would like a burger, right? So then you get the Amazon burger. If you go in and say, like, I'd like a McDonald's burger, a KFC burger, now we're talking about brand, you'll get that burger, right? So small to medium-sized business is the only thing that's going to protect you is brand, right? So if I want a lawyer and I ask for a good lawyer, I get results that the algorithm tells me. If I ask for Simba the lawyer, I will get you, right? And so that's, I think that is the conversation. I think small to medium-sized companies are missing the point a little bit. Should we adopt this? Should we not adopt this? You need to work two avenues. One is you need to adopt really quickly and then discard what isn't useful. But if you're not trying it, you're not going to find out. You're not going to do this right. And the other thing is you need to work relentlessly on brand, because the brand is the only thing that will protect you 5 years from now.
Let's talk about this as well, that AI is leading to the creation of new businesses that were not possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably, 5 years ago. Is this an opportunity for any other person thinking about creating a small business now? Is this the right opportunity for you? And how do you see these businesses that created through AI? How is it going to look?
Well, I think those are going to be as diverse as we have good examples already, but it's going to be as diverse as humanity itself. But if you think about this, at least for us in Europe, mm-hmm. The generation that came before us, even in Nairobi, the baby boomer generation, their competitive advantage was that they had access to cheap property, right? Our generation's competitive advantage is that we have Internet 3.0, 4.0. So either we use that, or we miss the biggest opportunity in our lifetimes to make something of ourselves, to leave something behind, to build legacy, to create, right? And in most cases, businesses are a little bit hesitant of adopting these things, while what they could really look at is, okay, what can I now do in an AI-augmented way, like the project management software, mm-hmm. which will massively improve the lives of people who already use this. Right? So very simple things. So another business, right? So calendars, Outlook calendars. I have 6 calendars. It's an absolute nightmare for my assistant to manage my 6 calendars. Now, there are more and more tools with monitoring this. We've tried a few, they're not perfect. There are more and more tools that collate calendars and make suggestions. AI makes suggestions, says, hey, usually on the first Monday of a month, you do this. Would you like me to put it in the calendar as a tentative so that no one puts anything on top of that, right? So all these kind of things. Would executives pay for this? Oh, absolutely, right? Would executive assistants pay for this? Absolutely. So another little AI business, right? But then there's also the creative aspects, the copywriting, the screenwriting, the building a website without needing human intervention, right? So that's already a thing. You can, I can have ChatGPT 4 write me a website in WordPress. Right? I just need the right prompts. So again, a massive risk, but also a massive opportunity.
Let's get this clear. I mean, I'll call them the laggards who are a bit hesitant about this. I said that over the years, we've sort of introduced the human aspect into our businesses. The people connect to the human element of a business. They invest in the person, the face, the culture. Is that something that we're losing? And do you think that will be an element that AI will never get right?
That's an interesting one. I was just talking about that the other day, so I've got a couple of notes on that. But first, I want to get you on the calling people who are slow to adopt laggards, because this one's funny, right? So because now we're the generation that's being a bit laggy. We're a bit like, oh, this feels unnatural, and we're losing humanity. And we were the ones 15, 20 years ago making fun of our parents because they didn't want to input their credit card details online. And they were worried, what if they get stolen? And we'd say, well, what if your cash gets stolen, right? And we found that funny. And now we're 10 years older, and now we're the guys who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend all my time on this, right? So it's just a generational thing in a way as well. And we need to get over ourselves, over this idea that anything any technology that's been around before you were 18 is natural. Anything that's happened between 18 and, let's say, 32 is a great career opportunity. And anything that was born after that is unnatural and should be banned, right? So we're now at the age where we're worried about that. And we need to flip our thinking into opportunity thinking. Otherwise, it's going to be a massive problem. And in terms of the humanity, so we had this same question about social media. And we said, okay, will this be an opportunity for people who otherwise maybe wouldn't see to follow each other and then meet more in real life? Or will this mean that we retreat from human interaction? In my view, we have more interaction as a result of social media. Let's leave aside the negatives for a moment. But I do see people, and I go to events that I probably wouldn't go to otherwise because people don't send me a letter, right? And they wouldn't have 20 years ago either. And so with AI, I think the jury's still out, because it could well lead to something where we require less and less human interaction, which also strains us in a way, right? And so we retreat from it and we get depressed and sad. But it could do the opposite. It could take away onerous tasks that we don't enjoy doing and facilitate the interaction. Let's talk about, for instance, if you and I wanted to meet, our calendars are really busy. It's lots of WhatsApp messages to figure out how we can have coffee. But the AI could actually just match our calendars and suggest, why don't you guys meet at 7 on a Friday, right? So there's also an opportunity to me to say some of the stuff that makes interacting with humans a bit more difficult and takes a lot of work can be done by the AI. And as a result, especially since many things are done by the AI, we crave more human interaction. And to me, that's one thing that will never go. The human touch is something that will, for instance, would you put your signature under a contract that is completely curated by the AI where your business partner is an AI? And if we're honest, we wouldn't.
I want to see you, I want to talk to you, shake your hand.
And the same was true during the pandemic when everything went on Teams and Zoom. The big deals still didn't get made. The necessary ones with new business, if I was negotiating with someone, they'd say like, this is nice, we've had a good conversation, we've seen each other drink Zoom, probably without trousers on, but with the, with the top looking good on Zoom.
That's it.
But if you haven't met, you haven't broken bread together, you haven't talked about family, about values, you're not going to sign that big contract. And that's not going to change. And so in my optimistic thinking, my opportunity thinking, I'm saying the AI is going to deal with the stuff that I don't like so much, which will free me up to go and see people and to talk about the really meaningful things, which means that we can build trust as business partners and we can spend time on what really matters rather than, I don't know, fixing problems with the code or aligning calendars forevermore.
Gotta be careful when you handle this next question. I've seen it all over, especially for people who are trying to explain to us how AI works in terms of achieving these tasks that would be enormous for any other person to figure out. That we're moving into the world of things that are generic. That indeed, when it comes to the naturality of an idea, the special touch that any other person with an idea is running out now. And that's what majority of the critics of AI are. They're like, well, it's going to augment what we do, as opposed to heavily relying on AI if we're going to move away from the generic outlook of business of things. Do you share the same concern that AI introduces generism?
I think humans introduce generics. I think so. My example that I have in mind is what I think about is: have you ever dealt with a customer service chat, right, online? You're chatting with someone from an airline or someone, and it is actually a human. Those chats are not very good most of the time, right? So I agree with you. Maybe the chatbot, the AI-guided chatbot that understands you quite quickly from the way you write, is more generic, but it could also make the quality more predictable, right? So you're not reliant on whether this customer service agent is taking you as their last customer before they get to go home and they're rushing or they're having a terrible day or whatnot. So I think yes and no. At the same time, I think it's an interesting question. But then, we can customize. What stops us from customizing the experience? Why don't we get the basics really simple? Like, for instance, hotel check-ins or airline check-ins or travel bookings. The AI can take the hassle and the mistakes out of it because, let's face it, software and machines are much more reliable than humans. Much better drivers, much better at everything that's mechanic, that requires an attention span, because we don't have a very good attention span as humans anymore. But then everything that comes after that, we then have more time to customize it, and that would be lovely.
I'm going to finally handle whether governments are late on legislation.
Oh, absolutely, they are late.
Frameworks around AI, but we're going to talk about that later on in this particular conversation. But before this now, somebody is listening to you. I mean, you're employed somewhere and you're doing these tasks that are easily now getting taken over by AI. How do you shift? Sort of stay within the same line, but then shift where, Henry?
So do you mean you're now an employee who's worried about AI taking over?
Yes.
Right?
Well, where do you shift to?
So basically you're one of all the accountants, all the auditors.
All the tellers.
Right, yeah. I think honestly the only good investment that you should be making, whether economic times are good or bad, is into your own education. So the first thing you need to do is you need to get really good at understanding what AI means for your particular job.
Yes.
Yeah. And otherwise you're at risk. And that's exactly the problem that we mentioned earlier, which is I don't think that in human history as many people's jobs have ever been at risk at the same time at this speed. So it's interesting to see what that means, what happens. Right? So for instance, we don't need people at cash point checkouts in supermarkets. We don't. But the transition of moving away from lots of sort of conveyor belts to lots of self-checkouts took really long, right? AI is moving much faster, so it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But I'm optimistic. I always am, though.
The people will shift. I mean, just before we get there as well, listen to COP28 submissions. There were just a lot of them.
Yeah.
And Henry, I'll be very honest that every other person who stood up and took up that stage was talking about how we need to rely on artificial intelligence for us to achieve some of the targets that we've set for ourselves, especially from COP26 all the way up to COP28. Here's the thing. How is AI even coming up in conversations around climate change and climate action?
So a couple of things. So first of all, I don't think most people knew what they were talking about. I think they included AI because they know that it can be a solution for many things, but they had no idea what they were talking about. I was cringing at some of the things.
Was that your analysis?
That's one of my analyses. Yeah, I had lots of friends. I was invited to speak at COP28 as well. I didn't have time to go. I was actually here at the time. I had many friends and colleagues speaking, and I think to tout AI as sort of the heal-all is very, very tricky. And what some people in some cases very conveniently forget was that AI and running these kind of softwares has a really high carbon footprint, first of all. So I found it ironic that people were touting millions and millions of funky solutions that have a really high carbon footprint. The other thing is, I think sometimes it's convenient when you've flown business class to Dubai to attend an event of 150,000 people or more, it's convenient to forget that in the hierarchy of sustainability, it goes reduce, reuse, recycle. So the first thing is you need to reduce your footprint, and to increase it in order to later reduce it, so you don't have to make any lifestyle changes or any legislative changes around how much resources we can use. It's just not going to work, right? And I think there's a bit of hypocrisy in that. Now, negatives aside, I also saw a lot of good things around AI that are going to be massively helpful. So I'll give you one example, very, very concrete, very tangible.
Yes.
So there's a company, fairly young startup, but very well organized, called Climate Aligned. And essentially what they've done, very much in layman's terms now, they've built an AI that draws sustainability data from practically all sources. Now, what does that mean? When banks put together a green bond, right? What they do is they'll put lots of different green investments into a bond, and then they go to a third party to have it certified as green.
Yes.
So they'll go and say, like, can you have a look at this, whether this is actually green? And then the certifiers will look at that and say, yay or nay, or make these changes. But unfortunately, once it's certified as green and people have invested in it, nothing stops the banks from making trades within that portfolio which might not be so green. They just need to be green at the next time they get audited, which is years down the line, right? Mm-hmm. And so Climate Aligned built an algorithm which, in theory and in practice very soon, is able to real-time check against all the data in the world, draw it in and say, this is green, this isn't green. So imagine how you feel as a bank. You're terrified. You're terrified because these guys can fact-check you real time, right? Yeah. But at the same time, you see it as an opportunity because it takes a lot of the work out of it of certifying as what is green and what is not. It makes it easier. So will this have a massive, this moves the needle, right? So in a very tangible way, because we invest billions and billions across the world in green projects, right? This will make it easier to identify which is which. Is this a green looking project, which is actually oil and gas? Or is this really tangibly green? Yes. So there are these things that people are doing with AI which are making a big difference. But usually these people are easily identified because they're going to take something that is not that sexy to the general public and they're talking in a niche way, in a highly expert way about it. Yes. Then there's the people who talk in broad sweeping terms about how AI is going to make us all very green. And I'm like, how? You're going to have more time, so you're going to travel more, you're going to drive more, you're going to eat more meat. So I think we need to be very careful with what we hear, and I'm very grateful. There's a number of Kenyan commentators and young activists from Kenya who sort of broke down the outcomes of COP and what that really means and what the convoluted language means and what it means for East Africa. And I'm very grateful to them because that's a huge task.
Pretty much, want to talk to you personally, on a personal basis now, even with your analysis. Are we going to get to a place where we're saying maybe we can rely on AI to give us some of these climate actions that we want?
So I don't think the AI is going to take the action for us. But I think in an optimistic future,
yes,
the AI can do quite a few jobs that do create a carbon footprint and that we now have to do.
Yes.
I think the worrying aspect of that is, imagine if we didn't have to do this job, right? So imagine if I could ask the AI to write this interview for me, I'd approve it, I'd send it in, and we would create 2 deepfakes, which we can already do,
yes,
of the 2 of us talking together,
yes,
right? Mm-hmm. So what do we do then? Because our purpose derives from our work a lot of the time, right? So how do we spend our time then? So most of us enjoy, even if we don't enjoy the work itself, we enjoy the fact that we are working with colleagues, with other people who are doing things. So what do? Do we play rugby all day? Do we sit in the park? I don't think that works for human beings. And I'm slightly worried that when there are less and less people with purpose, especially those filled with lots of testosterone and anger, what will they do? And usually people then come up with things like conspiracy theories and their own way of trying to change the world. And that's not going to be great for us, right?
Yes.
So I think we need to step very carefully. And I think, yes, we need to take a little bit of a time out and legislate.
Pretty much. 2 questions left of this conversation, Andre. Let's talk about your company, which is a software development company. I mean, could you give us an analysis of the level of the software applications within this conversation for AI? At what stage in business development or within business management are most businesses asking you for help through software development?
So I think so we do the whole range, and actually what we do is we're called a private equity company with a heart. So what we do is we buy SMEs mm-hmm. from people who wish to retire.
Does it?
And we go out with the pitch saying, look, there isn't a good offering for SMEs, because most of the time what PE companies do is they'll take the company over, they'll rebrand, and they'll fire any inefficiencies.
Yes.
But mostly small business owners really deeply care about their employees. So we help them build a way forward for all the employees. So sometimes we even contractually guarantee that no one will be fired when they leave. So that's our spiel. And those are software companies that we roll together. And the question of, people don't approach it this way. So the customers don't come to you and say, like, can you do something for us with AI? They come with a tangible problem and say, I would need a better software to do, I don't know, compliance on fire safety, or a better software for running my small hotel chain's loyalty program.
Does it?
And then what we then design is sort of the perfect interface for you to be using based on your needs. And sometimes that is AI augmented, but it doesn't have to be. And then on the back end of all of that, we look at it from the perspective of developers and say, how do we build this best and most effectively, most efficiently? And what tools are available? And some of them are AI tools, and some are, quite frankly, Post-its and whiteboards, right? As it always has been.
Yes.
So that's how that rolls. So I don't think the asks have changed that much. People want to solve a problem. It's just that we have now this new wonderful tool available. And sometimes people do come and say, like, can you make it in a way which allows us to use it a little bit like ChatGPT, or a bot, a chatbot that actually learns? And we're like, yes, we can.
Does that? Finally, therefore, it's a fast-moving space.
Yeah.
AI is evolving on a daily basis. And if you look at the speed at which majority of businesses are adopting it, or people are just using AI, then you wonder, how is legislation around this particular area going to be? Are governments at pain in regulating this particular space? Is it open-ended? And it's open-ended in that direction. What dangers are we exposing ourselves to?
Yeah, I think we need to, in fairness though, to all the governments out there, we need to recognize that legislation is always late, right? So it's not easy to legislate before the fact against potential future development.
That's it.
Now the question is, how quickly can governments learn what they need to learn and adopt from experts so that they can legislate credibly and usefully? And here the difficulty is that you need to get all the big players on board, right? So US, China, Europe, Latin America, Africa, everyone kind of needs to agree on the guidelines of this, because otherwise it doesn't do anything useful. If you legislate in one country, everyone's developing AIs, it's just going to leave and go somewhere else. You don't want that. They create the jobs of the future. But what also has to be said in a slightly critical sense is, I think it was Elon Musk who 7-8 years ago went to Congress several times. He's gone 4 or 5 times to warn of the dangers of AI if it's unfettered. And he said, look, you guys need to get your heads around this, and people just didn't understand what he was talking about. And now they're like, oh, we're screwed, we need to legislate, how do we legislate? And he's going, like the 5th time I'm here, right? And the interesting thing though is that the people who now own the scary AIs are all saying the same thing, like the big boys, right? Google and girls, Google, Microsoft and so on. They're all saying, we need your help in legislating. We're not against legislation. We're worried how this is going to work if this goes rogue, right? So please listen to us now. And now I think we're listening. And what we don't talk about so much, because politicians prefer talking about what they're doing, but what governments and institutions have done in the last couple of years is there's a number of think tanks that are well listened to across the globe that are coming together in understanding what it is that needs to be done. And I think that's helpful. How
do you figure it being? Is it an international code of legislation for AI? Because indeed you can't. Some people say you can't approach it from a country-on-country basis,
no,
because
cannot.
AI is supposed to come in and also cross borders when it comes to business applications.
Yeah, you cannot. You need to have an international arbiter, and I think one of the risks at the moment is that a lot of countries who don't like being judged or adjudicated internationally are trying to erode the power of the UN institutions, for instance.
Yes.
And I think they're very, very short-sighted. I think that's really problematic.
Yes.
I think we need to work on this together internationally, and it's like playing a football match. You can complain all you want, but what the referee says goes, and we need that referee. It's just a fact.
Finally, Len, in just 15 seconds then, Harry, from where you seated here this morning, could you paint for us how the business environment is going to be, an international business environment is going to be in 10 years from now in this conversation for AI? If you could be asked to paint it in one line, how is it going to be?
So I would have struggled if you asked for what's it going to be in 1 year. With AI, 10 years is a lifetime. It's 10 lifetimes. But I'm incredibly optimistic. I think we will be doing less and less of the meaningless stuff, which means that we can focus more and more on the really big issues. One of the really big issues is going to be AI itself. But of course, climate change and global warming isn't going anywhere. And then, I mean, we have enough problems to solve in society, don't we? I mean, so there's a lot of stuff where we often don't have the brain power to deal with it, because we're dealing with really mundane things like why is the website down, or why is the bus not going, or a flight cancellation. And so when we get more quality around those with the help of the AI, and we don't need our best brains to work on these really mundane things all the time, we have the capacity to solve any problem, I think.
Pretty much. It was 45 minutes. Harry, thank you very much for coming by, man.
Yeah, that passed quickly.
Thank you very much. That passed quickly. Thank you very much. Guess what? Take him online, back at Lookuptv, across all your social media platforms. Him painting a picture of exactly what the impact of AI is going to be in our operations, and most importantly, our businesses across the world as well. All right, the hashtag is the morning drift. Guess what? You got to listen to him. Like what I said, if you've not figured it out, it's saying you're too late already if you're trying to figure it right now. All right, it's a good time then for me to step out of the studio this morning. I'll see you tomorrow for another session. My name is statehousekenya. Goodbye and good day.